You've heard the rumors about an incoming gold revaluation, where gold could jump to $10,000, $20,000, even $100,000 or more per ounce.
Gold hitting its 24th record of the year.
But what if this wasn't just some possibility? What if a gold revaluation were already underway?
We think there is a movement underway to basically remonetize gold.
Not from a big announcement, not from central banks officially repricing, not yet anyway, but the way that it always starts, when faith and trust in a fiat currency collapses and gold steps back in the way it has for thousands of years as real money.
President Trump put out a tweet, "He who has the gold makes the rules, thank you."
Because the people in power aren't treating gold like a short-term trade. As the dollar weakens, crushed by debt and declining global demand, those in power, governments, financial institutions, even Wall Street, are racing to stockpile physical gold, preparing for what comes next, because they see gold for what it truly is: the foundation of the next monetary system. And although the official revalued price hasn't been set yet, the repricing has already begun. So what are the signs that tell us that a revaluation is just getting started? What happens to gold, the dollar, and your savings when the current system collapses? And most importantly, how can you use this information to protect yourself before it's too late? Let's get into it. Throughout history, whenever a fiat currency begins to fail, when the debt is unsustainable, when inflation takes hold, and when trust in that currency is broken, there is one thing that always happens: gold is revalued. And we're seeing those same signs today. America's debt now far exceeds the value of what it produces, with the debt to GDP ratio sitting at 122%, with projections for that number to only grow exponentially over the next decade. As that debt burden grows, in order to keep financing the debt, the U.S. will have to issue more treasuries than the world is willing to buy, something we are already seeing today. Foreign demand is drying up, and the Fed will increasingly be forced to step in and buy what others won't, further enforcing a never-ending debt spiral. But what if there was another option, not creating more debt, but making your debt disappear? What if you had an asset that, if greatly appreciated, would significantly offset your balance sheet? Enter a gold revaluation. Something that not only history points to as the next natural step, but the people in charge point to. In fact, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said, and I quote, "We will need a grand global economic reordering, and I want to be a part of it. I've studied this."
We're going to monetize the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet.
That's not speculation, that's a signal. But if that's not enough, just this past week, President Trump, an outspoken advocate of gold, posted on Truth Social saying, "The golden rule of negotiating and success. He who has the gold makes the rules. Thank you." This messaging from the White House is exactly what we've been talking about. Two things. First, the New World Order is going to require a new monetary system. That is not a shocker. And number two, gold is going to be at the center of it. But let's not just take their word for it. Let's dig into what a gold revaluation would actually look like. A revaluation can come in two forms. The first is what we're seeing right now, a free market revaluation. This is when the fiat currency weakens and trust in the system is broken. This is exactly what we saw happen in the 1970s, when President Nixon delinked the dollar from gold and trust in the system was shattered. What happened to gold? It went up from $35 an ounce to over $800 an ounce in under a decade. But the second form, that's when the government sets an official revaluation, a deliberate price change of the gold, which is exactly what happened at the height of the Great Depression in 1933. There were such serious concerns around banks, the economy, and paper money that people were taking their paper and converting it for real money, gold, which created competition for the dollar and limited the expansionary powers of the government. So what did the U.S. government do? They essentially forced people to turn in their gold bullion. Now, there were exceptions to this rule, which are very important. I'll talk about them in a minute, but they seized the gold bullion for $20.67 an ounce and turned around once they had control of the gold revaluing it to $35 an ounce overnight, a 70% difference. So everyone who held the paper fiat money lost their purchasing power, while everyone who held on to their gold not only maintained their wealth, they grew their wealth because they were revalued into the new system. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable, because I've read your comments, I've seen your concerns asking, so if they were to do an official revaluation today, would they find themselves needing to do this again with the gold? It's a valid question to ask, because right now there is a growing speculation that the United States does not have as much gold as it claims to have. Of course, Fort Knox has not been independently audited in decades. And there's growing speculation that China actually has far much gold than they've reported, meaning that the United States might not be the dominant gold force the way that they once were. So if a revaluation were to happen today so that they could wipe out some of the debt as well as potentially partially back the dollar with gold, well, where would they get the gold to do it? Because they'd want to make sure they had more gold than anyone else before the revaluation. Do you think that they would turn to the public the way they did in the past? Or do you think that they would look for it abroad? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Now, if they did go to the public, the good news is most people don't realize this, but there is a loophole. Not by accident, intentionally created because they had to allow a way back in 1933 for wealthy elites to hold on to their gold. They didn't want to give up their gold. They understood what was going on the same way today that those in power are holding gold because they know what's coming next. Executive order specifically exempts gold coins that have a recognized special value to collectors of rare and unusual coins from confiscation. Today, we commonly refer to most of those as pre-33s. But that exemption didn't disappear. In fact, it was further cemented into law in the 1950s with specific verbiage calling out any coins that were minted pre-1933. That's why most of the wealthiest and informed people make sure to hold gold that has legal protection. Which is why it is so important to make sure you talk to someone who really understands, who's well-versed in the historical nuances of gold when you are looking to buy to protect your wealth through this next reset. And there are other ways to go about this too. The government could cut deals with foreign central banks who might hold a lot of dollar reserves but are losing faith in the dollar. Maybe they call home gold that's overseas, or they assert domestic control over gold mining production. There are different ways this could play out. Even when talking about U.S. citizens, it could be more of the propaganda route, calling on patriotism, asking people to turn in their gold. In fact, just this week, I saw a video come out of China of an ATM that melts gold bars, gold jewelry in exchange for fiat currency. So there are a lot of different avenues that the government could take that doesn't necessarily involve confiscation. But no matter how the U.S. government acquires gold, one thing is clear. Gold is front and center on the world stage, and the possibility of an official price revaluation continues to grow with each and every passing day. Right now, the U.S. gold reserves are priced at $42.22 an ounce. If you were to revalue to the fair market price of, let's say, $3,400, well, right there alone, you would knock almost $1 trillion off of the U.S. debt just on balance sheet. So imagine for every roughly $4,000 of gold revaluation pricing, you knock another $1 trillion off the debt. What would happen if the gold was officially revalued at $10,000, $20,000, $50,000? It is a possibility that either A, gold will continue to be revalued freely in the free market. I put air quotes around those because if you've been following gold and silver spot prices for a long time and you understand how the COMEX works, I mean, these precious metals have definitely been suppressed and their fundamental value is far higher than the spot price, but that's another video for another day. So if gold were to be revalued freely, this could support the government because let's say that they allow prices to go up, 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 up. Then when they do choose to revalue officially, it could be an easier sell to match whatever that free market value is, at which point we would expect gold prices to go through the roof. Or B, we could see an official revaluation, a price set into the 6 digits. Who knows how much it would be depending on how urgent the crisis is in the need to restore faith and confidence into the system. But the truth is, at that point, we know that if they go with plan B and that price is set, it's too late for anyone who still has dollar-denominated assets. Those are going to be essentially worthless. Only the people who had the foresight to move over into the new system, into gold, before that happens are going to be the ones who are protected. That goes for both nations and for individuals. This is why timing is so important, because you do not want to get stuck in the old system. Now, if you are new, intermediate, or expert when it comes to gold and silver, you can never have too much information. Resources are so important. Knowledge is key, which is why I highly recommend you download your ITM Gold and Silver Guide. If you haven't already, it is completely free. We believe so strongly that everyone should have this knowledge that we made it free, and it's really easy to download. All you have to do is scan the QR code, or you can click the link in the description below to get your free ITM Gold and Silver Guide. It is a terrific resource that you then can have access to at all times. So if you haven't done that already, go ahead and do that right now. And if you have even more questions, or you want to talk to an expert analyst from our team and find out how we can help you prepare for what's coming next, you can always call us at the number below, or click the link in the description and set up a time that works best for you to, again, talk to one of our expert analysts who understand currency life cycles. They understand this reset and the pivotal role that physical gold and silver will play, and they have helped so many people just like you. And as always, I so appreciate you being here. I'm Taylor Kenney with ITM Trading, your trusted source for all things gold, silver, and lifelong wealth protection. Until next time.